thank you so much for joining our Sleeping with Other People 5-year anniversary watch party hosted by Romcom Fest and IFC Films. I'm Maria. I'm the founder of Romcom Fest. Romcom Fest is a festival celebrating love through film and experiences. Last year was our first festival in Los Angeles, and we had to postpone our 2020 fest, but we'll be back next year. And in the meantime, it's been awesome connecting with this community of rom-com lovers digitally with our virtual events, our blog, and our newsletter. This is our third watch party, and we also just had a screenwriting competition, and we'll be hosting a live table read of the winning script in a few weeks. So hope to see you at more of our events. And thank you so much to the IFC Films for co-hosting this amazing event with us. Enjoy your IFC Films Unlimited free trial and watch more of their great movies. Thank you to everyone who donated a few dollars. Together, we raised over $950 for I Am a Theater, which is so awesome. If you donated $5 or more, you've been entered into our raffle, and we'll announce the winner in our thank you email tomorrow. And now on to the discussion. If you have any questions related to the film, you can drop them below in the Q&A section, and Mara will take a look through there for questions for the panelists. Otherwise, you can use the chat function, which I see a bunch of you are already, to chat amongst with the other attendees about the movie. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the writer and director of Sleeping with Other People, Leslye Headland, and stars Jason Sudeikis and Alison Brie. The discussion is going to be moderated by my friend and Romcom Fest advisor, Mara Webster. Mara, take it away.
Look at that. Uh-oh, we did it.
Oh no, I'm so terrified. What's happening?
Guys, it's just us here. So that's the good news is it's just the four of us. Say whatever you want. Let's get crazy.
No one's paying attention.
No one else is watching.
Everybody's watching the Jeffrey Epstein doc on Netflix.
Ooh.
They just have
that on here.
I know, Allison. Immediate mousetrap. Someone just.
Nice.
These comments. Oh, thanks, you guys. Yes, hashtag Netflix.
Yeah, there's like almost 40 questions already submitted.
Oh dang, right off the bat, yeah.
Wow, we're really getting slammed with those questions.
Oh, someone called you out. They were like, "Oh, so was watching Jeffrey Epstein."
All right. Yep, we're gonna flag that person. Yeah.
They're on a list now, so that's good.
They were hate watching it. They're like, "Oh, this is such BS."
Ironically, yeah.
Ironically.
How you doing?
Hi.
Great, and now we'll just sit in silence.
Yeah, we'll just sit here.
Because I'm guessing that we won't kind of like see where I'm doing the intro.
Yeah.
Are they doing an intro?
There's chats and Q&A. There's a whole. I mean, I could cover everybody's face with all the information coming in here.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
God, oh my God, there's so many people. I just saw the participants list.
Yeah.
What? How do you see that?
Well, I don't want to know. Oh, okay. All right. Don't worry about it.
I changed my mind. Oh, I see the chat though. Aww.
Do you think there's industry people? Yeah.
Oh gosh, I hope so. Yeah.
That's why I got this ring light working overtime over here.
What's the intro that they're doing?
So Maria's just doing kind of a general like Romcom Film Festival intro, talking a little bit about the festival, everything being online.
I just did that actually. It's your turn now.
Take it's already.
Away. You're live.
Oh, we're on.
Now we're live.
You guys got us all chatting.
Love it.
Well, I'm Mara Webster. I'm the moderator for today's conversation, which I'm sure Maria just mentioned, but as you could tell from overhearing us that we couldn't hear what was going on in the secrecy of a Zoom room. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to be getting to do this today. I had the pleasure of seeing what Maria put together in person for the festival last year, and it was just absolutely astounding. And I love the way that she's brought this festival online for all of you guys. So thank you for joining us. And I wanted to start by asking the three of you about watching movies right now on quarantine, because it's something that's really struck me as even when I'm watching movies with with friends online at the same time, is how different everything reads at the moment. And even just watching this film, the fight scene in the restaurant, seeing people in a restaurant close proximity to each other, he's touching someone's face. So I was curious if for you've had that same experience in watching things with a different lens at the moment.
Oh yeah. Oh, definitely. We were just rewatching Along Came Polly, a classic.
Oh, so good.
Guys, look, we're doing highbrow, medium brow.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Low,
pencil thin brow.
Low brow, I'm in.
Yeah.
Definitely lowbrow, but that's not what I'm talking about now. I'm talking about Along Came Polly, and I don't know how well people remember that movie, but there's a whole gag about, you know, Ben Stiller is a risk assessor and Jennifer Aniston is like so kind of living by the seat of her pants. So there's like all these there's all these jokes where she like is eating a protein bar and then like drops it on the ground and then like picks it up and eats it. And they're in a restaurant like eating Indian food with their hands. And she like takes a big glob in her mouth and then like slops her hand off and then he eats it. Yeah. And the whole movie, I was just like, no. You guys. Jenny.
That's a modern Faces of Death video. Yeah, that's like, oh my God.
It was making my skin crawl.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds disgusting now.
It's disgusting.
Yeah. No, we've added a whole new layer to the romance with this film, which is outdoor eating and people shaking hands.
I would say it gives it's what is a nice reprieve in our movie is the scene where you're teaching me how to masturbate because we have a good distance. You're doing it to the bottle, a glass bottle. It's very sanitary.
Nowadays, you would have your own bottle, obviously.
Yes.
You wouldn't use the same bottle.
Yeah. Well, I just let you take that bottle home.
Exactly. Yeah. Or if I was really on my game, I would have brought my own bottle. But it's it was a spontaneous choice for the characters within the film. So I guess that wouldn't track. But yeah, no, all that stuff is definitely landing differently in big ways.
Well, I wanted to jump in by asking you about the genesis of the film and the way that you really at the time when writing the script felt that the genre had become a little bit stagnant. It was always this space where characters are likable at the beginning and they're still likable at the end. And, you know, really all of their self-worth is about whether they get someone else rather than completing a version of themselves instead. And the way in which you really set about wanting to circumvent the genre and reinvent it in your own way.
Well, it's funny because yes, to all of that, that's exactly how I felt. And yet at the same time, I was very surprised that we had made a rom-com by the time we were over because, you know, I wrote this movie very much from a personal place. You know, I was really obsessed with this guy that had no interest in me. I was really struggling with my own bisexuality and my queerness and kind of like projecting a lot of my own nonsense onto like, you know, a Sobchak type person that was not interested and also horrible. And
lucky you.
So I yay! And I turned out great. And then and I had this relationship. I had a male friend that we were best friends. We still are best friends. Actually, we're in a tabletop RPG game together now over Zoom for the quarantine. That's what we're doing.
Love it.
Get into that later. Anyway, so we're still best friends, but at the time, he was really helping me through that entire experience. And from the inside, it was very dark. You know, like a lot of the direction that I gave Allie was like very dark direction. Like it's like very intense stuff. And I think Jason. No, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like, you go, go.
Someone's just got to go.
We're such women. We're like, no, you talk. Oh God, I'll talk. No, please, go ahead.
The quick interjection was just going to be, but I know we said this 100 times 5 years ago when we were doing press for the movie, is that most of the notes you would give me on set within scenes, it would play out like this. You'd run in, you'd grab my shoulders, stare into my eyes, start crying, and then I would start tearing up and you'd just nod and then I would nod and you'd leave. Sometimes there might be like a, you know, and I'd be like, yeah. And
day one.
I especially remember it during the scene where I run into Sobchak and his pregnant wife, you know, and
yes.
it's that great shot where you're just circling around us the whole scene. And that was a pivotal day. I just like vividly remember in that crowded room, cut, hold on, where's Allie? And I was just like,
terrible. I'm just like, you know, I was like throwing all of this awful shit onto you guys. And then at the end of it, I think, I don't know how did you guys feel the first time you saw it? Because I felt like it played so well, and it was such a huge comedy. And obviously, you know, I mean, we could talk forever about your guys' improvisational skills and just the amount of chemistry that you guys brought to the film, and like how you turned it from, I think, this very, you know, personal kind of swamp of emotions into a very coherent, enjoyable, lovable story about two people that are very lost and very broken and really end up like embracing and loving the other person's brokenness. And I have to say that so much of that, and the, you know, I think the love and the spirit of the movie, like the tone of the movie really came from those performances and my experience of working with Allie and Jason, and so I think a lot of it, once I saw the first cut, there was so much joy in the movie that I can only attribute to actors that were so willing to go and completely inhabit these people, so that by the time they found their happy ending, it was so utterly earned.
Yeah, but what's weird to hear it, you know, because I mean, I knew so much of it was like, you know, like a tattoo of your soul and stuff you were going through, and playing like sort of the masculine version of you know the multiple sides of you, is that yet the relationship that it's based on is one that you still have, and that you will add a depth to frivolity, like a you know, like a big, you know, a big silly, you know, multiple, you know, online video game that you're just like, oh yeah, we can do whatever, we can hang wherever and do whatever. It's like that. I would want to be on the other side of this camera here, listening and watching you guys play that, because that's, you know, that's the love story, you know. It's like, yeah, there's all this shit that they're going through and all that, and you were acutely aware of that, and we all brought our own stuff to it, and then the stuff that you were, you know, kind enough and gentle enough to, you know, let us in on and trust us with. But at the end of the day, it was kind of like, oh, it's the you know, it's the connection between the people that are still connected, not the fuel, you know, that
yes,
it was more about the flame, you know.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yes.
I love listening.
Well, Jason, that kind of leads me to something I wanted to ask you about in terms of your character's vulnerability, because one of the things that I think people responded to so much with this character is the fact that we don't see that side of men. We don't see them being emotionally vulnerable in that way and admitting their fallacies so much. And the way that really offered you something new in terms of your career as an actor that you hadn't gotten to explore with characters, and how it was a really exciting space for you to be able to tap into.
Do you want me personally? Me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What do you want to know?
Just in terms of like
all that stuff she just said.
Well, yeah. I didn't know there was a question. I didn't know who was coming towards until the very end there, because I missed the top part. But yes, yeah. No, I got to play, you know, a fair amount of, like, you know, playful, like, cads who like, you know, I mean, they're each very different. I mean, you know, they're all versions of me, and it's all me. It's just, you know, at different, you know, stages of weight and hair length and facial hair. Those are my three moves. And they vary. And I guess complexion.
Same.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, you know, that's my trick. But yeah, but there's a lot of, you know, things that, a lot of life and experiences that I have had, for better or worse. I accept them all, that happened after, you know, cut and before action, that inform this. So while it hadn't been necessarily displayed on camera, you know, it's definitely stuff that I had lived before. We're all a lot more than we are, you know, between action and cut. And not even just actors, but people in general. So for me, it was I wasn't aware of that. Like, you know, I just believed in the story, and I believed in Leslye, and, you know, there's not a turd in the bunch, like having just rewatched the movie right before this. Like it's remarkable. It's like the cast. I'm always my least favorite part of anything I'm in, and this movie is no different. And yet I have so much to look at and laugh at and enjoy and empathize with. And so yeah, I mean, I was just showing up, saying the words, trying to make this lady in the top left corner believe it, and the lady in the bottom left corner.
I don't know which corner I'm in, and I'm just gonna assume they're both me.
Yeah. Yeah. How did Brie get half a screen? What the hell?
I do want to piggyback and say that the cast, everybody, like, it's a testament to what a great script it was, how fresh it was, how fun the writing was, that like people just popped in to do small scenes, like Adam Brody in that opening scene, Margarita LaViva, like Michael Cyril Creighton, who I don't know, look him up because I've actually worked on a couple other things with him, walks by and pours us water in that first scene. Like, it also a fun thing about shooting in New York. I feel like you have access to such great actors that for every role, you're just like, hey, there's a waiter. It could be a fun moment. Michael, would you come by for the day? And they're like, yeah. Like,
yeah, it depends who's asking though, right? I mean, when you have Leslye asking, that's a gal that knows her we can swear, right? Her shit.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Oh yeah.
That like she knows her shit. That also people were excited about because of everything she had done in the theatrical realm, and then also with the success of Bachelorette. That was kind of like, oh yeah, I'll go work a day. She doesn't truck with trash. Yeah, I'll get in there.
Yes, and I see people mentioning Jason Mantzoukas and Andrea Savage.
Exactly.
They are
so
funny, and they improvised so much. And
oh god, that was just like that was just the second they would start talking, But I also have to say they were very respectful in terms of like, this is.
Well, they're both right. They're both writers. You know what I mean? But so are they. I think that's part of the reason why that they would know. I would like to think that they know that we have nothing to improvise off of unless someone did the work ahead of time. So like you built them these great chords of who they were and what they were, and then they could just they could riff off that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we would do it kind of like, as written, and then, I would totally be like, do whatever you want, say whatever you want, and, but Mantzoukas especially would really, he'd give you 3 really good as written takes, and then, I'd say, okay, great, do whatever you want, and, but my favorite moment of improv was of course the Mousetrap scene, because, so I'm going to just dive into it, Mara. Sorry. But the Mousetrap scene was this was a level of brilliance that I don't think I've experienced in my career since in the last 5 years. But like, no, truly, because, we knew that we would do a couple, there were couples as scripted. I think maybe avocado was in there. There was some stuff that was in there, but certainly not the response of like, you should see how I eat an avocado. And Mousetrap was scripted, like as the kind of, as the last thing. But so if you don't know anything about indie filmmaking or TV filmmaking, usually what you do is you roll both cameras at the same time. Like you do your shot reverse shot at the same time, especially if people are improvising, so that you don't have to redo anything that you've already shot. So you get like that kind of spontaneity. But shooting at night in New York, and especially shooting in the Aspect ratio we were shooting in, and Ben Cutchin's our really brilliant DP, like, the way that we wanted the film to look, we wanted it to look, we just didn't want it to look like we had shot them at the same time, I guess is the best way to put it. So we shot Allie's coverage first, and Allie just said one like crazy word after the next, like Christmas tree. Like, and it was just like, Christmas tree was the one I remember.
Crazy words like Christmas tree. I'm an improv genius.
Like one of the ones that didn't make it.
Noodle salad. Noodle salad, like,
one.
you know, I'm trying to remember if there was one that didn't make it that I really loved, but anyway, but
that
then
manila envelope and like you lick it and you stuff it, being the response.
yes, oh my God, it was all so good. But then we had to turn around, you know, like, and you know, that takes 20 minutes or whatever it is. And we had to shoot all of Jason's reactions. And so Jason had to remember everything that he had said.
Or make up new, like, even
or make
funnier.
up new, better ones. It was so incredible. And I was just like so in love with both of you that night. That was the night you also did that amazing crossing the street, which I was
I just rewatched
dangerous.
that and I was like, oh yeah, that I loved that. But I love that you just let it play out.
Yeah.
As it played out in real time on a real street that's not closed off in New York. I'm like, I don't know how far she wants me to go. I guess I'll just keep running and speaking.
No, I'll just keep saying bye. I'll say bye.
Oh, man. I think I didn't call cut until you were like halfway down.
I was like going into the subway. I was like, I guess I'm leaving for the night.
Like, I don't have a subway card. I don't have a card on me. I
don't have any cash. I'm in a costume.
You know.
Looking through my prop purse. Like,
a mic.
I got some tissues. Chapstick.
I wanted to ask you all how you think the film would have been different if it wasn't set in New York, because I think, you know, I live in New York. I've been here for the last 12 years, and there's something so different and so specific about the dating scene and the way people relate to each other in the city. So how do you think the film would have been different if New York wasn't essentially another character in it?
Originally set in, do you remember?
San Francisco.
Exactly.
Oh my God, I totally forgot that.
One of the reasons I said it in San Francisco is because I wrote it in San Francisco. I went out there and was there for like a couple weeks, and I went to all these. I just love that San Francisco is like a classic thriller city, you know, like Basic Instinct, Vertigo, you know. So, you know, so I was like going like The Conversation, awesome. You know, like I was going to all these like really fancy, like very iconic SF places.
Rock.
The Rock. How was The Rock not at the beginning of that? The Room. Someone said The Room.
It always wants final billing. The Rock always wants final billing. Not the actor. He won top of above the title.
True. Yeah.
But the actual The Rock.
But I was glad that they wanted to shoot it in New York because, well, you know, I live here, and I'm not here now. I'm at my parents' house, but you know, I was glad they wanted to shoot it in New York because I do think it's kind of a rom-com city, so to speak.
Yeah.
Well, it's so conducive to the walk and talk, which is such a big part of this movie and how we show these characters hanging out. And like, you know, this movie could not be made in LA. It would not feel organic to have just people, you know, they're just like on their phones in their cars. I don't know.
Yeah, LA's great for a 24-hour, like a day in the life type of thing. But like there's a spontaneity towards, you know, in New York where, you know, like I think about the scene when you first meet, you know, Mantzoukas and Andrea's characters and we're like, oh, let's go have the date. You know, there's a level of spontaneity that you can do there because, you know, you don't have to drive if you've been drinking. You know, it is a small little island. I mean, there was a show on HBO that explored this very, very well.
Exactly.
How you can bump into each other and, you know, all that.
I was going to say there are a lot of, the other thing that I think helps with New York is that there are a lot of like plot moments that are predicated on people running into each other in this movie. So I was like, New York makes the most sense for that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you about in terms of your character, Alison, with Lainey is, I think one of the things that really resonates with her, particularly amongst women, is she's a woman who owns her sexuality and she's never shamed for it. And even just seeing her lose her virginity in a way it's not magical, it's not romanticized, but it's also not a terrible experience. It's just a moment that happens and then she continues on in her life. And I was interested in the way in which you really wanted to explore that through her as a character and portray that on screen.
Well,
go on. And answer this. I'll answer this.
Where do we start?
Buckle your seatbelts. No, I mean, God, I loved Lainey as a character, and you know, obviously, she is so, you know, she's so connected with who Leslye is as a person, and I know that, you know, even part of me getting the job was like, one audition and then like a 2-hour meeting with Leslye where you were like climbing on the chair. Yes, I do feel that way. And so was I. We were like sweating in an office just talking about the script. I'd be like, but do you ever? And she'd be like, I do. Oh my God. Like, so I do think that there was some sort of like very visceral, immediate connection from both of us. And like, you know, at this point, I had done some comedy stuff. I was still like right in the midst of Community, where I think I was always trying to break out of like the little Annie Adderall kind of, you know, good girl thing. And I liked that this was like a fully realized woman who does embrace her sexuality, but it's also sort of her enemy. It's like her main struggle in the film versus actually the way she loses her virginity, which is very much like a choice she's making. And then throughout the rest of the movie, the way that she has sex with Sovacek and that relationship is like so out of her control. She spends so much of the movie feeling out of control. And like, you know, even Leslye, when you were talking about, I feel like so many of the comedic things that I had shot before this, and even on Mad Men, some of our scenes that were like, unbeknownst to me, played quite comedically later between Pete and Trudy. Like in the moment, I'm like, this is a dramatic scene about how Trudy can't have children and she has to wipe her tear, but she's going to use the napkin ring. But then that's like a comedic beat. But like, it was never my approach to comedy really to be like, well, I don't know. I think I always came at it from a more dramatic place anyway. So similarly, shooting this movie felt very much like, oh, great, I get to sink my teeth into all these like really dramatic scenes, but also we have fun and play. And like, you just couldn't ask for a better scene partner than Sudeikis, who just had me like crying, laughing, and like the rat-a-tat, like I couldn't keep up, but like, I feel like the way he improvs even made me look better, you know, and it just had all the special things.
I was just gonna
editing
say
helps us both.
I was gonna say on that note, like in that scene where you're running and we had the Steadicam, you know, I don't know if I ever told you this, Allie, but like we were running and we were shooting, you know, we're running and I made you run so many times. I was like, made everybody run so many times in this movie. And then, you know, there was the shot that's in the movie that kind of whirls around and finds you. Like, I remember we were watching the monitor, like the focus puller's monitor, because our monitor was way too far away. And, you know, I just loved what I was seeing so much. I was just like so taken with it. And the AD went, oh my God, like actually like vocalized, like, oh my God. And I think it was because like, yes, it's an impressive performance, but I think it was because you were really conveying so many different things in that moment. Like, just like, I'm embarrassed that I just did this. I really am obsessed. I can't believe I didn't catch up with them. You know, I'm so angry. You know, like there were just like, I just hadn't seen, you know, it was one of the first scenes we shot because we had to shoot Adam out. So it was just like really one of those moments where I think you achieved exactly what you were saying, where it was just all these different levels in these tiny moments that like you really had to be present to experience.
And that's the right brain stuff. I mean, you got to give it up, you know, snaps for also keeping a certain distance with a person with a Steadicam where you can't run full out and you have to like, and then the other person, like there's all the technical stuff
your
that like
arms are going faster than your legs.
Yeah.
To make it look like
oh, and that thing played like, that's like, that thing is like an aria. It has like 6 movements in there from the second you're out there to like, then you turn and you see him again. Having just watched it, I was like, it's remarkable. It's remarkable in its conceit and it's remarkable in its execution.
I would say I feel the same thing though, like watching your sex scene with Amanda. Like I remember one of the first times that
no. You don't
that
have to do that.
scene is
no, but it's true.
hot.
But it's true. But it's true. When I was watching it, when I was watching a rough cut of it with a friend of mine who I had come to, you know, was in the edit with me. She was interested in, you know, directing, and she's gone on to direct now. And she was like, I was like, hey, you want to watch some scenes? She was like, can I shadow you? And I said, yeah, we actually have a couple scenes put together here. And when she watched the rough cut of that scene, she was like, I've never seen something so sexy and so disturbing at the same time. She was like, I was like, yeah, it's just all that shame and sexually, you know, exciting at the same time, like just all of it kind of at once, in a way that I think sex in rom-coms especially is almost treated as a joke usually in rom-coms, and sex in this movie is kind of we talked about this at the beginning, it's kind of another character, you know.
Totally. I mean, like And these types of scenes, I mean, again, that's just like why this script, these characters, it was such a delicious dish for actors because the characters are so layered and the movie was so sexy. And that is a good point about like how, even if they're not played for comedy, a lot of the time they're just sort of chaste. Like these rom-com sex scenes are sort of like, there's no actual sex and it's like very PG, and this movie felt a little scary in the way that the sex is portrayed and what's going on, like again that out of control quality, but again like and the way that you had written the characters, they were so realized already in terms of that layering of like, oh, what a fun thing to get to play, that like I'm at the same time I'm like sexually aroused and fulfilled and I feel shameful and I'm a little scared and I'm disappointed, but and I'm late, and like I'm, you know, like it was just like always a handful of those things.
Yeah. I would always say that it's like gooey, like you could pull it apart like taffy, and then you get it off your hands, then it's still on your fingers, and then you wipe your face. Now it's on your face and it's on your shirt. Like it gets all over a little bit. Like that's what it feels like.
I like it. I like it. It tastes good, but now it's in my teeth. But I don't know if I love it, but I do.
Well, I also think, you know, when we talked about how intense and really kind of, you know, long the sex scenes were going to be like with you guys, is that, you know, I mean, because in the script they were really written out like, you know, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this, you know, it was very,
and also deliberate about them being in one shot, in single shots, both
just
Lainey,
very, like,
Lainey and Sobachek, me and Pete's character Paula, and then the fight between me and
the fight was also going to be shot the same way as the sex scenes, exactly. So it's like, and I think the idea, now that I'm by the way didn't know this at the time, but now that I was listening to you guys talk, I was like, I guess the thought that I, you know, the instinct that I had was that in most rom-coms you kind of go like, especially a Harry Met Sally kind of trope of like, you know, they're not going to have sex, you know, and kind of the argument is like, well, why don't they just have sex, you know, like it's like, well, why don't, or the Patton Oswalt joke, like trying to fuck, you know, like, it's just like, you know, like that kind of, you know, and I think the point the movie makes is that while it's very to go back to your, it's all coming full circle, Mara,
yes,
is that
watch this, Mara. Watch what she does. Watch this.
I'm gonna direct it.
while the original sex, you know, the first time you see sex in the movie is very positive and, you know, sex positive and kind of almost oddly neutral, you know, like sex for these characters in the present day when the story is taking place is kind of a threatening, scary thing. It's a thing that they don't feel like a lot of control over. And so unleashing that within a relationship that they both value so much, I think is something that you had to make clear to the audience, that the stakes are actually kind of high here. You know, like it isn't, to them, sex is not just, you know, they're not sure what sex looks like when it's the extension of a loving relationship. They only really know what sex looks like in these types of situations, and marrying it with a scene full of violence, kind of, you know, even if your brain, you know, you may not have noticed it, but your brain did. What we're saying is like, this is a very dangerous thing that we think we have control over, but we really don't. So.
Yeah. One of the other sides of their relationship that I was curious about is the emotional gestures that we see, because it's very different to what we expect. It's him coming over when she's dancing with the kids at the party. It's her kissing him on the hand, like not even hugging him when the truck's leaving. It's him punching someone in the face, but she's not even there to see it. So it's not about posturing and showing off to someone. And for all of you, I was interested in the way that you really thought about what those kind of grand gestures were going to be, but in a way that has a lot of restraint to it and feels very emotionally real when you're watching it.
The one that I rewatched, and again, it's something, not again, but it is something that I did, but I only did it because of Alison, because of Leslye, because of, you know, and it's the same way I feel about improvising. Like you can't improvise in a blank room. I mean, some people can. I have to, you know, have, you know, all the suggestions, me personally, in this to be, you know, convenient, the suggestions of everything that Leslye set up for us, structure-wise, character-wise, everything she put into it, and then have someone like, you know, Alison on the other side, and you have to listen and all that good stuff. And so this gesture, it just really spoke to me because I love the scene, and it, but it's Jake and Lainey, not Jason and Alison. I swear to God, that's how I feel about it. Is when you know, the scene where you know, the button is, you know, I love you for free, is when I'm taking off the shoes and everything, And then I'd sort of touch her coat, and I, hey, like, let's, lose the jacket too. Like, you're gonna, sleep here. And I go to hang it up, and I dump my shirt that was on the hanger to put her thing on there. I look at that, I'm like, how the fuck did we come up with, like, how did, like, that just, like, for me as a guy that sat behind this damn machine that I'm looking at right now with these letters in front of it all in this weird QWERTY, thing, I never would have thought of that in a blank room, but it had to be like that set with, like, knowing how Ben was shooting it, knowing what Leslye wanted, knowing what, Alison and I's, relationship as co-workers, as actors, as scene partners at that point. And then most importantly, what was going on between, Jake and Lainey. And it's like those little gestures, I mean, that's what it's all about. And that's an alchemy of dozens of people, you know what I mean? It may be two people living in and out, but it's like, for me, that's one of those examples that you're speaking of. But those other ones you listed are fantastic too, they just sort of happened. But that was one I jotted down when I watched today. So it's funny that you asked that question.
And one of the other moments that has so much romanticism to it is Adam Scott's character at the end when Lainey's saying goodbye to him. And I loved learning that line at the end where she's saying, oh, and you wished you could have met me when I was a little girl. And then he adds the line, so I could have been your true love, was actually something that he added into the script and really ad-libbed. And I was interested in kind of like how that came about in the moment and how that really changed the perspective of his character, because I feel like that's the moment that we understand his vulnerability very differently.
Yeah, I was gonna say with your gesture moment, I kind of love that, and I agree totally with what Jason said, and I'm not just trying to like be cute. Like, I really don't think this movie would exist in the beautiful way that it does without not just the two amazing people here, but yes, everybody that worked on it, because it was always like when I've rewatched the movie, although I didn't rewatch it tonight because I cry a lot, and it would have been weird and to show up all crying and stuff. But that moment, because the line was originally something like, I could have been your first love or something like that. And Adam is a very kind of like, I don't know how to put it except that when it comes to Sobchak, like Adam just like was so matter of fact about him in a way that I was kind of, to be honest, shocked, because I always am worried about presenting these very unlikable characters to actors. I don't want them to be like offended that I want them to play them. Like I remember meeting with Adam and being like, so sorry, will you play this guy? And he just really, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, Ali, from like the first rehearsals we had, but he was really like very just matter of fact about him.
And he showed up and he was like, I think I should have this weird little mustache. And we were just like, yes, it adds a layer.
Yeah, man.
He also had that moment. Oh, just quickly, he had that moment when you said, because I'm not an asshole, which was literally that when you guys are walking through that walk and talk, and he's like, your new guy looks good, and you're like, leave me alone, and he's like, blah, blah. I mean, that's like almost word for word a text message exchange I had. It's like just like, because I'm not an asshole, you know what I mean? Like, and it was Adam's idea for him to just walk away in that
awesome.
Yes,
that scene, and just be like, okay, and then like, okay, and just like walk away. And I was shocked. I was like shocked that he walked away like that. Or I think he told me he was going to do it, but still I was shocked watching it. And so it's like these
it's
tiny
so
little
awful. It's such it's the choice makes the guy and makes her, it's so shitty.
It's so, and it makes total sense why she has to keep coming back to like untangle the jewelry, because she's like, how can you fuck me like that and then just like walk away? Like I don't understand.
It's self-preservation.
Yes, but and it's also just just when she's going to be the one to have the power and walk away, he somehow still steals that from her right at the last second.
That's so funny. As a boy, I look at that and be like, that is just self-preservation cowardice. That is just when alpha males eat their own asshole, like where it's just like, oh, if you're gonna fucking make a scene about the choice that you made, when I watched that, I mean, between like that moment or when Adam Brody spits when you tell him you cheated, like is like remarkable. Like I look at that or Mark Lucas's delivery of like him loving the Rush Hour movies, like you know, like I'm just dazzled and delighted. And I said this to Adam, you know, many times, especially when the movie was coming out. Like, you know, to have, you know, Michael Keaton is a great Batman because he had a great Joker. You know what I mean? Like Adam did me a giant solid by playing that character with zero judgment and with absolute full knowledgeable intention that is, you know, like thrilling. You know what I mean? It's like Fassbender in 12 Years a Slave, where it's just like unredemptive. You know, it's just like, here I am. I'm this guy. I'm the star of my own movie, and we didn't shoot it. She didn't write it. I'm in it, and you guys are co-stars, and that's
truly how I felt too. That's truly how I felt too. I thought he was in another. He would show up in another movie. I was like, "What movie is this?"
And it was like a serial killer. It was like a terrifying horror movie.
Because he was living two lives. Like,
I'm glad that Jason brought up eating people's assholes, because
as I do.
The fans need to know that. In the sex scene with Adam Scott and I in his office, Leslye, do you know, Leslye? Do you remember cutting a very large chunk of that sex scene? And this was like one of the first sex scenes I had ever shot. And I guess I more want to say, like, Adam Scott was great in every way. Like, his clinical approach to everything was great, because we were in this very hot, very small room shooting this scene that originally was scripted. And we start making out. He opens up my shirt. He bends me over the desk, and as the camera comes around, like, disappears behind my body for a long time. A long time. And I mean, Leslye, correct me if I'm wrong, audiences were very put off by it.
Very.
Multiple test audiences were like,
multiple test audiences. Everybody was like, no, please don't make this happen anymore. But I mean, I loved it. I was like, I think this is amazing. Like, this like, to me, makes total sense, but I don't know.
I mean, I don't think he was eating her asshole, for the record. I think he was just sort of going down on her from behind.
Yes, and I agree with that. That's also my headcanon. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's no pun intended or intended. I don't know. But yes, yeah. Yeah, I think there was something about such a hateful guy's first move is oral sex, like, you know, like that. I just thought, you know, I was like, this will really throw everybody off, and I think it just threw them off. I think also people were just they just weren't used to seeing such a sex scene in a comedy. Like, I think what we realized was that scene, especially the scene that you see, like, you know, that you end up seeing in the movie, that shot at where the light is shining through, and that light is a practical, like, that was all planned, like, every single moment of that you guys, like, I just think you guys don't understand how difficult it was for these actors, like, because, you know, it was all so planned, and they still, Jason and Allie still had to make these scenes feel, you know, spontaneous, like they were really in the moment and consummating relationships with these people. Like, it was a really truly tall order. And I see some people freaking out about the door. I want to say that the door being open for this sex scene is a character choice, and it is intentional. And the reason is that Lainey wants to be caught. She wants the relationship to be public. Like, she wants it. She doesn't stop him because she's hoping, even if it's shameful, even if it's the worst experience ever, like, she still wants some recognition that this is happening, that she's not the only person that knows about this relationship. So everyone that's like, close the door next time, I will. But I just, for that time, I had to leave it open to make a point.
I wanted to dive into.
Mara, this is only because this is the only time I've got to see Leslye since the film. In the scene when you're in the waiting room, you get your Hitchcock cameo, right?
Yes,
Leslye.
yes.
Yep. And you and Alison are next to each other. Do you also play the voice of his nurse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hitchcock never
forgot
thought of that.
that.
Hitchcock never thought of that. He only thought of, I'll just show up in a newspaper. He never thought of an audio cameo. That's next level. That's understanding the medium. That fat ass didn't know shit.
I feel like I'm talking too much. Please.
No, this is exactly why we have you guys here. I wanted to jump into some of the questions that everyone watching has been submitting to us, though, and this first one just made me laugh a lot. It's from Rachel. Did someone have to teach Jason how to perfectly finger a girl in the jar finger scene? Because Leslye, isn't this something that you used to do back in college? You used to show people?
It is, but no. I mean, some of it was in the script in terms of like, yes, in college, I mean, how did I not know I was gay? But yes, I would get up and explain. And, and a lot of people, by the way, I understand we're in 2020, not 2015. And I have some people have brought up to me that they don't like that Jason has, I would say that Jason's character is the rudder of this scene. They don't enjoy that. I totally respect that 100%. But it is intentional because the scene is not for Lainey. The scene is for all the men watching the movie. So it's important that it comes from the male character. So that's that's where that came from. But Jason, would you like to talk about your masterful knowledge of the female genitalia?
No. I mean, I know that I know and understand and appreciate the laments that have probably come more your direction because it was your idea to have to have Jake teach Lainey, but that's just those two people. There we were, and that's who Lainey is and who Jake was. I mean, but yeah, I mean, the thing that I delight about it is your use of Public Enemy later when, Lainey and Chris Smith are having sex in the Dirty DJ.
Yeah, but that was
thing.
all you. That was all you. You improv that line, and we went immediately that day. You were like, let the drummer get wicked, and that day I was like, we have to clear that song. I was like, fuck,
that's hilarious.
Spend as much money.
Okay.
We spent, I think, just as much money on that as Bowie to get it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
that joke.
With the new understanding that I have for licensing music, I was like, yeah, that's still it's a humdinger to wait a half hour to use it versus at the the end of that scene for my money. But yeah, he just loves her. He loves her and he wants her to love herself, and that's what that is. I mean, am I teaching a woman to masturbate? No, I'm teaching a woman to understand how incredible she is because he's unable to do it for himself, and so he can do it for her, and he's teaching her to love herself. So for my money, if you're only looking at the fact that the boy's got doing all the talking, his fingers are in the bottle, then you're only appreciating one level of Leslie's brain, and I'd encourage you to go to the other two levels, because the fourth level is nowhere anyone should go. That's for her. That's for her.
The next question that we have is from Megan, and she's asking, Jason and Alison, where do you see Jake and Lainey 5 years later after the film, maybe in a non-COVID world? Thanks and love the movie.
Right. They're quarantining. Safe
December of 2019.
I mean, they're going all the way. Like they're gonna get. I would say that they get married and have kids and have like a great fun life. It's like you're catching a glimpse of it when they're walking through the store and he's telling her about his sexual experience, and at the end of it, the guy's like, "You two are the coolest married couple I've ever met." And then me and my buddy,
me and my buddy, who I love, is packing the box and like not even in focus. He's just like. And I love that dude was so great. Yeah, I agree with you. I think yeah, they already have the communication and transparency there. It's like everything after that is just about keeping your dick hard and like the gal making the guy feel okay that he's put on a little weight, right? And then
and Lainey's a doctor. That's the other thing.
And Lainey's a doctor, yeah. AKA the breadwinner.
They're like very rich, I guess.
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
It's a dark tale. It's a dark tale. I'm sorry.
They live in the Midwest. No, not at all. I can't even tell the delay now.
I don't know how to do Zoom etiquette unless it's a 12-step program where it's very clearly everyone's timed. You know what I mean? Like I don't get it. But.
Yeah, I need a conch shell, Lord of the Flies style. Like we all just pass that.
Well, this one is for you, Leslye, and it's asking about whether the credit sequence with Jason and Andrea was fully improvised or whether it was scripted at all.
Oh, that's fully improvised. That's fully improvised. That was literally, I think that might have even been a reshoot where we were like, should we just get that? We have the camera. Like we had to do the reshoots for you guys for the last scene for some reason. I don't remember. It was some like.
I don't remember really, why either.
Yeah, I don't either.
It was some I honestly don't remember.
You remember we had the graduate fake out where we were about to get on the bus and
yes.
Yes. And I wonder also, did we add our stopping and kissing? Like that we never, was it that we wanted to have the rom-com ending that in the original ending you just never even saw? It was like unsatisfying that our highest point of like emotional romantic connection is over the phone. And now in this one, we in the reshoots, we got to stop and
kiss. That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was totally improv. When we got the cameras back and we got like an extra day or whatever, we were like, let's call them back and have them, we'll do like a post-credit scene. Because when you do a comedy, that's kind of like, I don't know if you guys know this, but you're legally binded to do a post-credit scene. And it what, guys? It's so stupid. But,
yeah, that and Marvel movies. Comedies and Marvel, you got to do bloops or like, little tease. Bloops or tease.
And then
I have always thought about, oh, sorry.
No.
Go. I keep thinking about doing, I would love to do a sequel, but I think it would have to be like when you guys were talking about where they are, it's like, I've always wanted to do a sequel with them, but I want to do it like a before sunrise, before sunset thing where it's like a cool 10 years later. Do you know what I mean? Like it's gotta be like a real vibe where you're like, and also because I think it's a film that people, when it first came out, it was, people really loved it and all those kinds of things. But I think it kind of like Before Sunrise or like Fleabag season 1, like people, I think really, the people that loved it really loved it. And then it was kind of when you continued the story that people were like, oh, I see what this is about. Like, I see what's going on here, but I don't know. I mean, but I think it would have to be like a different, because one of the things I love about those sequels is that you feel like they're in a completely different time frame of their life. Like they're just they're practically different people by the time.
It's going to be like a knocked up, this is 40 scenario.
Right. Which was like, how far? I'm not going to Google that right now while I'm on the phone.
Were they the same?
But
people?
Well, I guess that was sort of a spin-off movie. But
I see. Oh, it's right. Yeah, because Leslye and Paul were the same couple.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Guys, stay with me.
Hey, stay with Judd Apatow. It sounds like I can't keep up with this guy. Holy moly!
That kind of leads me into my final question for you guys before we have to wrap up, in which I wanted to ask each of you what you hope the lasting legacy of this film and these characters is going to be as we kind of like continue looking back at this film, 5 years, 20 years, 40 years from now.
Box office does not connote success.
Yeah,
good is good. Like good lasts forever. That's a better way to put it, because I don't mean to put it on like showbiz terms, because too many people do, and I think good is good, and good always finds people, and people find good. That'd be mine.
I think that it's just what you're saying, Jason, but it's been so special just hearing how many people continue to connect with the movie and rewatch it and discover it on Netflix years later. And you know, I think that's the thing. That's the best you can ask for, that it's like has a little place in people's hearts. They want to go back to it and watch it again. If people are connecting to these characters and getting stuff from them, that's great. I know that I have a lot of movies and you know, a good amount of them are rom-coms that I like to watch again and again, just for the feeling that I get. It's like a comfort. And, you know, for this to be a movie like that for people would just, you know, it means so much. And it like, I mean, it doesn't surprise me because the movie's so wonderful, but it's very touching, the reach that it's had in the time since we made it and put it out.
Yeah. What about you, Leslye? What do you got?
I agree. I think you guys put it perfectly. I think that like, I just think it's the kind of movie I always wanted to make, which is truly it's the kind of movie I love, which is like, you know, if you ask 5 people about it, 4 of them kind of look at you like, I don't think I've seen that. And one of them is like, that's my favorite movie. Like, you know, it's like, you know, so I'm really happy with that. You know, I've had everything from, you know, blank stares and resounding yawns to the movie, to people saying, oh, that's the movie that was the first movie we watched as a couple, or like we watch that all the time. You know, it's a lot of couples watch it together, which I think is really beautiful, that it's not just a girl movie or a boys movie. It's like that a couple can watch it together and kind of go through the emotions that Jake and Lainey go through. And I've even had, you know, women and men say, you know, like I had a really toxic relationship and this movie made me feel a little less shame about it, kind of looking at it through a little bit of a comedy lens, like not making fun of it, obviously, but like, you know, I think when you see, and I would hope to do this with Bachelorette as well. My first movie is just like kind of reflect back, like, you know, this stuff that you're really concerned that you're the only person going through, or that you did something wrong. Like everybody's doing it. So like, you know, it's like, they're just not making a joke out of it or telling it with like bright lighting, comedy lighting, you know, like they're, so it's just kind of, you know, not, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much
Yeah.
for taking time to talk to us about the film today.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everyone who's in the Zoom room with us. Thank you for chiming in and sending us all these great questions as well. I hope that you guys have a good rest of your night and stay safe over the next few.
Thanks
Absolutely.
everybody. Thanks so much.
Thanks for coming and checking it out. Yeah. Thank you.
Lovely to see you too.
So good to see you again. Oh, I love you guys so much. Thank you for doing this.
Let's do it again next week, right? Every Thursday.
Call me after we hang up.
Yeah, let's keep this text chain going for 20 minutes. I can't just have a cold-blooded, just like Just
please.
We hit leave meeting and that's it. No.